Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Furthermore, some parents may not find this content suitable for children as it contains explicit language and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Tell your device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, wherever you're listening, I am there. Matter of fact, you can just Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan, and I'm going to pop right up. Plenty to get to today. Obviously, we are going to be talking about Tua and Brian Flores. We're going to be discussing that. We're going to be talking about Washington. They have officially announced that Jane Daniels is going to be the starter for their team. We're going to be talking about Tyreek and Noah Lyles. The contract is what Tyreek wants Noah to sign for a 50-yard dash. We're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have reportedly offered Brandon Ayuk $28 million. Mike Tyson's press conference. We're going to be getting into that with him and Paul. Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, plenty to get to today. All right, obviously, big news of the day, right? Tua claims via the Dan Le Batard show that Brian Flores was a horrible person, told him he was horrible at his job every day, told him he was no good, told him he was everything except a good quarterback, basically. But then he went on to compliment his current coach, McDaniels, said he's great, tells him he's meant for the job, he's the right guy, yada, yada, yada. Well, there's more questions than answers. That's all there is to it. I mean, if, and I do mean if this is all true, then it makes you wonder, does Brian Flores hate Tua because of what he alleges he was asked to do? Don't forget that Brian Flores sued the Miami Dolphins. He sued the Miami Dolphins and said that he was offered $100,000 per loss that they were trying to tank. And why were they trying to tank? Because they were trying to position themselves better in the draft so that way they could allegedly entice Tom Brady, which, by the way, the NFL ended up finding that the Dolphins did, in fact, tamper with Brady and all that good stuff. But they said that there was no wrongdoing in terms of taking football games, which, by the way, it wasn't just the Miami Dolphins alone. It was also the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, and a John Doe. Don't know how some random-ass team in the NFL was able to get their name off of there, but that's the way that it is. So if this was happening, was he talking down to him in an effort to purposely try to make him play like crap? Like shit. Let's just call it what it is. Was he trying to get him to play bad football? Well, I guess that's for everybody to decide within themselves. Now, don't forget that Brian Flores said that he was disappointed in the league's investigation. It also begs the question of, let's pretend all this was going on, but Brian Flores wasn't, in fact, asked to tank games the way that the NFL says that they didn't find that the Dolphins were asking him to do. Was this the result of Brian Flores just being a bad coach, a jerk, and him trying to create backlash with the Miami Dolphins by saying, I'm suing the hell out of you? I mean, these are all legitimate questions. Was he simply just lashing out? Maybe he was being told things behind closed doors that we don't know he was being told. So he took it out on his star QB. The rumor had it that he never wanted Tua to begin with. Maybe he liked another QB better. Maybe he liked Hurts. I mean, who the hell really knows, right? And here's the thing. The more we dig into stuff like this, the more that we probe, It's just going to be a revolving door, a rabbit hole, and I don't think that we're ever going to get any actual answers out of this situation. And I understand why Dan Lebitard asked the question. As a journalist, it's kind of a logical question. Hey, what's the difference between waking up and knowing that Brian Flores is your head coach versus waking up and knowing that Mike McDaniels is your head coach? Is it a stressful environment? And do not forget that the non-success of Urban Meyer in the NFL, a lot of players pointed to the fact that he was talking to them like a maniac, going crazy, yelling at people. Hey, this isn't college, right? Isn't that what a lot of people said? This isn't college anymore. We're grown men now. You can't just hoot and holler at us. There's that aspect to it too. There's a level of responsibility. Don't forget that there was a time frame when people wondered if Pete Carroll was the responsibility of Russell Wilson's career. And they were legitimately asking, hey, does Pete Carroll know how to handle a $100 million quarterback? Because there is going to be ego with it. In fact, there's going to be a hell of a lot of ego with it. There were people that were blaming him for a little while with what was going on with Russ. I personally think that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I think it's a mixture of everything that I just talked about and maybe even then some more. Now, as of the moment of this broadcast, we have not heard Brian Flores' retort yet. But the fact of the matter is, I don't really know that it matters. Hell, he's not even in the AFC anymore. I don't know. For my money, I think Tua, instead of creating maybe a scene and chaos and all this other stuff, I think he could have easily just said, hey, look, man, I appreciate that question. I'm focused on my coach. I'm focused on my team. Now, to be fair, that would have been the politic answer, right? The correct answer. I don't have a problem with him being honest. Maybe he's going to cause some division in the locker room. Maybe he's not. Who knows? Maybe, there's going to be chaos with other players now. Maybe they'll all come forward with maybe their experience with Brian Flores. We don't really know. What we do know is this. We have what Flores said about the Miami Dolphins. We have what Tua says about Flores. And the NFL season is not even started. But this is carryover from a few years ago. And for me personally, I think it's one of those things, just let it the hell go. But that's just me. All right, real quick here. A topic that I have been trying to avoid, speaking of egos, Tyreek Hill, Noah Lyle, and that petty-ass drama. Look, this whole thing started because Noah said that Super Bowl champs can't be world champs because he's like, what is it? This isn't the Olympics. Can't be world champs. And then from there, it just spiraled into this and that and all these players saying this and that. And then it turned into basketball. Is it this? Is it that? Can a basketball player compete with football? I mean, it just turned into this whole unnecessary thing. You want to talk about summertime boredom? Damn, man. Back and forth, back and forth. Look, dude, I'm all for man shit, Brody. All right? I've stood up for Draymond I don't know how many times. I've talked about athletes getting into little scuffles before games and sometimes even after games I don't know how many times. When men get together, sometimes shit just happens. It's just the way that it is. But for me, this is futile manhood. I'm the fastest. No, I'm the fastest. I'm faster than you. I'm faster than you are. I know you are, but what am I? I mean, like, seriously. We're talking childhood-type pettiness, man. I mean, look, regardless of how this comes out, what's next? Is Noah Lyle going to strap it up in a practice? Is the NFL going to let him come around and start taking pops and him start popping people? I mean, we have to think logically about what's going on here. Does anybody remember the movie, what was that, Any Given Sunday with LL Cool J and Jamie Foxx. Remember their two characters, Willie Beeman and Julian Washington? They had a race in the middle of practice, and LL's character fall and bust his head. Yeah, well, I hope they both fall. I'm just, somebody out there's going to be like, bro, you are an A1 hater. No, I'm not. This is so petty. It's got nothing to do with nothing. Now, I can understand a lack of respect for football. I really can. And it's not the NFL's fault per se that it's not worldwide because, boy, have they tried to make it worldwide. They've got games in Germany. They got games in Mexico. For the longest time, they had a sub-league out in Europe. European football, Canadian football exists. You got the XFL. Everybody's tried to make this thing as global as they possibly can. But for whatever reason, other countries are not invested in that type of football. Mainly because true football, soccer, is so inherently popular around the rest of the world that there's really just no room for football as we know it in the States. And honestly, I'm okay with that. And I get it. It's not like the NBA for the most part, right? You don't have a lot of players coming from France, Europe, all these different places, Australia. You don't really have a whole hell of a lot of that. All the little countries and all that stuff. Serbia, Yugoslavia, Germany. I get that. Okay, it's not the flood the way that it is in the NBA. And even then, we have basketball in the Olympics, right? And what do we have in the Olympics? We're talking flag football, and then there's been other football, but it's been a disaster. So regardless, the best players in the NFL, you're not seeing them in the Olympics. That's kind of the point, right? So for me, my thing is this. I get where Tyreek is coming from. But that doesn't make this any less petty. And it doesn't make this any less ridiculous. I'm just keeping it a buck, all right? I think that this whole thing has gone way too far on both sides. If this race happens, I'm not going to bother to watch it. I'll just be glad that it's over so that way we can end this nonsense and we can move on to something else. I'm just saying. All right, so the Pittsburgh Steelers have reportedly offered Brandon Ayuk $28 million. Now, supposedly he wants $30 million, and the Pats reportedly offered him to him, but supposedly Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go there. Jared Mayo said he wasn't going to comment on anything. He said, look, one thing I learned from BB is you just don't talk about other teams' players, so he didn't comment on whether or not they wanted him. Look, this is pretty 101 stuff, and this is stuff that I've talked about I don't know how many times, right? Number one, is it a true fit? What about schematically? Maybe. Could be. It'd be a lot more physical style versus what's in Frisco. Frisco's a much more of a finesse football team. Najee Harris is a much more run the football up the middle type running back. Not saying that he can't get around the edge, but, I mean, come on. There's only one C-Mac in the NFL. Number two, they're a football team that relies on toughness, defense. I'm not saying Ayuk isn't tough, but I'm just saying schematically it's going to be a little bit different, right? Now, here's the other thing. Maybe with him being there, can he take the pressure off the offensive line? Because now instead of blitzing as hard, defenses might want to step back a little bit and go, okay, you got Pickens over here, you got Ayuk over here, you got Najee Harris with screens. We can't leave the middle open. We can't bear down in too close. We can't risk a blitz and him going on a 9 route and then just Russ throwing it over the top of our heads, or Fields or whomever ends up being QB. And that's really either to Ayuk or Pickens. Can't leave it open for 10 and in, 15 and in. Can't leave it open for a flag route. I mean, it really would potentially help their offensive line because it's going to take some pressure off, right? And it might take some pressure off of the running game because with Ayuk, they might back the hell up a little bit. So it could be a win-win. Is he a good locker room fit? How's he going to get in with the guys? Look, they've already got a new quarterback that isn't well adjusted yet with everybody in that locker room. Really, two new quarterbacks who aren't adjusted yet with everybody in that locker room. So let's keep that a buck. Not only would now you got to try and get two quarterbacks adjusted with everybody in there, but now you're going to throw in a wide receiver as well who's supposed to be top tier that you're going to reportedly pay a lot of money for. And if you're going to pay a lot of money for this guy, then you're going to expect big money product. So again, ego walking through the door, got to ask yourself, is it going to work in the locker room? Especially because he's not going to be the only wide receiver there with an ego. Pickens. Think about this. If Ayuk ends up over there with Pittsburgh, is Pickens going to then want more money? Look, I think last I read over the cap, which deals specifically in salary cap space, the Pittsburgh Steelers have $16 million available. And right now, Pickens is getting 1.6. So here's the thing. You got Russ for one season. You only had to spend 1.12. Denver picked up the rest of the tab, right? You got Pickens. If Ayuk comes over, guaranteed he's going to want more money. His contract is up next season or next year, 2025. But I promise you, he's going to end up probably holding out and he's going to want more money. Are you creating a bigger problem than what this is worth? That's the main thing that you have to ask yourself. Then once you get past that problem, you have to ask yourself, do we inherently get better with Brandon Ayuk? And you have to ask yourself all those aforementioned questions that I just talked about. Does he help take pressure off of the quarterback? Does he help take pressure off of the run game? Does he help take pressure off the offensive line? Is he going to fit well in the locker room? Is money going to be a problem? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Shout out to anybody who gets that reference. That's what it is. And to be honest, let's also keep this a buck. This all could be a power move by Brandon Ayuk in an attempt to stay in Frisco. Because if New England reportedly wanted to give him the money and he didn't want to go there, and now supposedly the next best offer that's on the table is $28 million, then now what? Do the 49ers throw their hands up and go to hell with it? Or does this help position themselves a little bit better and go, look, you're not going to get everything that you want. You're either going to take the money and go to a team that you don't think is a winner, or you are going to have to put your pride aside, decide that you are not spoiled on the success that's here in Frisco, take a little bit less than what you want, and just stick around with us. Because the longer this thing goes, and the more he turns him down, or the more that people do not offer him what he's looking for, the more the bargaining chip actually will favor Frisco. Because I highly doubt anybody's going to want to take him past the month of August. You know, we just saw with Taylor what happened. Supposedly the Colts could not get fair market value for him. So it forced their hand eventually, and they signed him, but he signed how far down the road? With Chris Jones, the Chiefs lost, so it increased his bargaining position. See, the Colts and Chiefs were both in dire straits. The 49ers are probably not going to be in that situation. Do I think they get a little bit worse without Brandon Ayuk? Do I think that they could have avoided this drama and just gave him what he wanted? Yes. Absolutely. But the longer this thing goes, the more it actually increases their bargaining chip. Because everybody's going to look at that football team and go, you have C-Mac, you have TK, you have that offensive line, you have that defense. You know damn good and well that he's going to want to go somewhere specifically that he thinks is a winner, plus he wants the money, plus you got to find a team with the salary cap. Eventually, he's either going to have to give in on a trade or he's going to have to give in with the Niners. It increases their bargaining chip a lot more than it does his. And I'm just being really real about it. Matter of fact, I'm being about as real can get. I just don't think that there's any other way to say it. So if the Steelers are reportedly offering him this, then that to me tells me that they've looked at everything else that I've just talked about. They've looked at it all and said, we're good. We can handle 2 brand new quarterbacks. We can handle a wide receiver. The money doesn't bother us. We think he's going to fit in with the scheme. We think he's going to get in with the guys, blend in, no problem. Everything is going to be great. All right. I think this is a last straw. If he doesn't take this, if it's for real, it's Frisco or nothing. And that's all there is to it. All right, really quick here. Hard pivot to boxing. Really didn't get a chance to touch on this yesterday. So much other stuff was going on with the UFC and all that. Plus, you know, let's be honest, a lot of people are tired of talking about this. They just really want to see this fight. Tyson and Paul, the press conference, just not impressed. Look, Paul was getting gully with Tyson. And I can't tell what Tyson's smile meant, but to me it meant one of 2 things. A, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You are trying to sell a fight, and once you are in that ring, you will not be able to run. You will have nowhere to go. Nobody will be standing in between us. I'm going to remember what you just did, and I am going to beat the living hell out of you. I'm going to be your worst nightmare come true. And when I am done with you, I will feel so bad for what I did, I will probably have to go and disappear from the public for a while. Or option B, this whole thing is a gag. Not everybody's in on it. And some of these clauses that Paul says are not real are very real. And Tyson's just letting him have his fun. I got to tell you, though, even 40-year-old Mike Tyson gets pushed like that, and he loses his ever-living mind on that dude. And I don't think there are any 2 ways about it. I think he goes ham. I really do. Damn near 60-year-old Mike. All right, buddy. Have your fun, compadre. Glad you're kicking it. I'm glad this is all a big fat joke to you, because it's not to me and it never has been. I don't know, man. Look, before all this ever happened, Tyson said that what Paul was doing for the sport of boxing was really good because he was bringing it so much attention. But I guess I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with it because boxing is struggling. True boxing is struggling right now. It needs an Ali. It needs a Larry Holmes, a Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Rocky Marciano. It needs true fighters. Fighters that you can really stick in the forefront of everybody. Big Baby, Kelly Pavlik was pretty good, but, you know, it just seems like as quick as they're here, regardless of how well they continue to do, even after a couple of losses, they just go by the wayside. And it's amazing to me that we expect everybody to have an undefeated career. It's just not going to happen 99% of the time. You got Tyson Fury, but, you know, every fight that he takes now just seems like it's the wrong fight to take. It's all exhibitions and all this other stuff, and It was not a good look for him to go as far as he went with an MMA fighter. At the end of the day, I suppose it is what it is, but my personal stance on it is there's got to be some changes. There's got to get things that are made. And the only reason why I'm looking for Paul to lose this fight is because I don't ever really feel that he will truly fight a fighter. I don't think he'll ever do it. I understand that for him and for a lot of us, it would be a childhood dream to be able to fight Mike Tyson. And he's living it out, and that's fine. That doesn't make it any less of a joke. If he were sparring with Mike Tyson, I think we would all accept this. I think we would start to respect him and go, okay, look, this guy is taking it seriously. Now we just got to get him a real fighter. They're all making a lot of money. A lot of people will tell you if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Cool. But a lot of other people will tell you, bro, I watch sports for sport and not a bullshit spectacle. Just saying. So Jaden Daniels has been named the starter for Washington, which probably means like other quarterbacks, Penix Jr., et cetera, he'll probably be kept out for the rest of the preseason. I mean, after all, if a coach has seen what he needs to see at this point to make somebody a starter, well, then there isn't really much left to do other than probably get somebody some reps in, right? Get the continuity with the offense, all that good stuff that everybody always likes to talk about. Get the snaps in, get the real game time. If we do, maybe like a quarter somewhere in there. You know, I'm old enough to remember where the first preseason game, the starters usually played one series for the first game and then a couple of series for the second game and then usually a half for the third game. And then the fourth game, a lot of times they would play the whole game and everybody would be ready for football. It's just not like that anymore. There are some traditions that I have been very clear that it's time to move past on. And for the most part, I agree with moving on from a lot of traditions, especially, you know, in college football. You know, I know a lot of people want to keep it January 1. You had the 4 big bowl games, the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. The coaches, they voted on whoever a champion was, and by the end of the night, you knew who it was going to be. Me personally, I felt that system needed to change a long time ago. I felt there needed to be a playoff. And me personally, I'm still not even happy with the playoff system that's in place. I think they need to adopt the FCS way of doing a playoff. It is what it is. Whether it'll ever happen or not, I don't know. But I'm just saying there's a lot of traditions that I really don't have a problem with moving past. As far as preseason goes, I think 4 games is the perfect amount. You know, way back in the day, they used to have like, I think 6 preseason games, which is way too many. A lot of coaches will tell you that preseason is really not that necessary. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers will tell you, hell, McVay hasn't even bothered to coach in a preseason game. He left it up to one of his other guys. So it is what it is. But regardless, if you've seen enough, then you've seen enough, I guess, right? And let's keep it a buck. Jaden was going to start at Washington. I don't think there were any ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, I have loved what I have seen from Jaden in the preseason, but it is the preseason. But then again, I've been shouting for the last 2 years that there wasn't a more NFL-ready quarterback in all of college football than Jaden Daniels. And I know anybody who's seen a highlight has seen the absolute dots this man can throw. The accuracy is on another level. And I have maintained for I don't know how long now that if you were to swap Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, that LSU team is barely 500, and Oregon's probably competing for a national championship. Now, I maintain that. And look, I'm a huge fan of Michael Penix Jr., but I think Jaden Daniels has an edge on him. And for my money, there wasn't a better quarterback coming out of this draft than Jaden Daniels. Not the biggest fan of Drake May. He's too sloppy with his throws. just willy-nilly loves to throw the football up. You're not going to be able to do that stuff in the NFL. Jane Daniels is much more precise. He's much more trusting, and it looks to me like he gets a lot of reps outside of time slot reserved for practice and reps. I feel like he's the type that sticks around and works with his guys. Hey, let's do some drills. Let me get some stuff in there. Let me see what you can really do. Let me get some timing things down. That seems to me like the type of quarterback that Jane Daniels is. Why he fell so far is really beyond me. I think he's a better prospect than Caleb Williams. It is what it is. But Jane Daniels, to me, was going to start in Washington no matter what. Now, here's the thing with Washington. You don't really have a great defense. You don't really have a great offense. Jane Daniels, to me, is going to have to be the definition of build around. You know, the old saying, he's the type of guy that you can build a team around. Now, when it comes to money and all that stuff, who the hell really knows what type of individual he's going to be when it comes to the dinero? What I do know is this: if he eats up way too much, he's never really going to be able to get a decent team around him. And for me, if I'm a quarterback, the first thing I'm thinking about is the best offensive line possible. Then I'm thinking about my run game. Then I'm thinking about my receiving core. Now, that may sound a little ridiculous, but if I've got a good line and I don't have the best receiving core in the NFL or a true number one, my offensive line can make sure that I've got time back there so that way guys can get open. They can break off their routes, whatever it is they got to do. I can buy a little bit of time with my mobility. Boom. But I'm thinking about my run game second, because my run game is not just, the option and stuff that we're seeing more and more in the NFL, which they've finally been accepting over the years. But for me, it's, look, if I've got a running back and an offensive line, we're getting 4 or 5 yards a tote. However we're getting it on the ground, that's going to take more pressure off of me in play action. It's going to give my guys more time to get open. I don't need the fastest man on the planet in order to be my receiver. I just need somebody who's going to be willing to go and get the ball a couple of times. Bail me out once in a while. Work within the system. Boom. To me, that's the way to go if I'm a quarterback. But that's my way of thinking. I don't know what Jane Daniels is thinking right now, and I don't know what he's going to be thinking 3 or 4 years from now. What I do know is this: I think Washington probably wins 8 or 9 games this season. I think they'll probably have to make a move to trade up in the draft next year to get somebody on the offensive line. Maybe they'll have to make a trade for somebody on the offensive line. I think defensively you need linebackers. I don't really have a problem with my front, but I do have a problem with my linebackers. I want to get better in the defensive backfield. So I'm looking to make some trades. I'm looking to move up in the draft. But we'll see how it all works out. In the meantime, I think Jane Daniels, obviously, predicated upon everything I just said, is the best option. Did he end up in the best situation? No. But he is the best option. Speaking of best option, look, for Denver, I guess it is Bo Nix. But see, though, the preseason is something that I love. And again, I'll say this because you get to see players, right? You get to see Patrick Mahomes and go, oh, geez, this is what the Kansas City Chiefs saw that everybody else didn't. Simultaneously, sometimes you get to look and go, well, this isn't going to work out for longer in the season. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you get it wrong. In the case of Jane Daniels, I think I'm going to get it right. In the case of Bo Nix, I don't think I'm going to get it wrong. I might. But I hate it because, I was watching the game the other day, and number one, it wasn't against any significant players. It wasn't against starters. It wasn't against any of that. Number two, the throw that he made for the touchdown pass, the announcers were so geeked up, and I'm sitting there watching him going, bro, he was past the line of scrimmage. They're all hooting and hollering about give him the job now. Then all of a sudden, when they found out he was past the line of scrimmage, it was all, well, that's just awareness. something he got. I mean, the backtrack was so real. I have never denied that Bo Nix is a hell of an athlete, but so was Tim Tebow. And Bo Nix is Tim Tebow without the strength of the arm. And that's all there is to it. Now, we've seen some incredible plays from Bo Nix, from Caleb Williams, from Jane Daniels, a couple of other quarterbacks that have really stood out in this preseason. I just don't see it with Bo Nix. Now, the one thing that I have said is, look, the offense that he ran in Oregon, it's exactly the offense that he's going to be running in Denver. He would have fit in with Frisco. He would have fit in with Detroit. He would have fit in with Denver. Those are all very comparable offenses to what he had while he was in Oregon. With that being said, though, I don't see where this works out. I think Denver gets off to a really rough start. The offensive line certainly has not improved. I love Audric Estime. I love that draft pick, but I don't think they're going to utilize him, and that was the thing that bothered me. Well, Audric Estime wasn't asked to catch a football at Notre Dame. He's going to be did nobody watch Notre Dame football? Did any of these guys watch college football last year? Did any of them watch it? The one-handed grab alone that Audric Estime made in traffic, guys all around him, it wasn't for a big play. But that's just it. He was willing to put in effort to get just a few yards on a reception. To question his capability receiving the football out of the backfield just blew my ever-living mind. That was, to me, the best pick in the draft the Denver Broncos made. Right there. And for me, I think Audric Estime should be the starter. Not somehow JP Ryan. But it's not going to end up that way. Unfortunately, I think Audric Estime is going to end up getting cut because Sean Payton won't know what to do with a running back of that size. I think he looks at his size and goes, he's just a guy that can get it done up the middle. And I don't think he'll ever fully understand that Audric Estime can do a lot more than you think he can. So why they wasted the draft pick is kind of beyond me. It is what it is. I don't see any improvement from Denver this year. I could be wrong. But if Denver wins 7 games this season, I'll call it a win. But I don't think so. And I think Peyton probably gets fired middle to late part of the season. And after that, Denver will once again be going back to the drawing board. All right, real quick here. Daniel Jones. Look, I know it's preseason, and I keep saying this, and I know a lot of people think, man, you bounce around a lot. Look, there's a lot of different sides to a lot of different things, and more than one thing can be true at once. That's just the way that it is, whether anybody likes it or not. I said from the jump that the Giants are going to figure out how difficult life really is without Saquon Barkley. If it was tough with him, just imagine what it's going to be like without him. Look, I'm sure everybody saw the interception he threw, and I get it. He's trying to make a play and just get rid of the football, but it looked to me like he was probably still inside the tackle box. So getting rid of it, he's still going to get a flag, right? He's going to get a flag because somebody in the vicinity, inside the tackle box, in the end zone, it's going to turn into a safety. Daniel Jones just does not know what to do back there. He really doesn't. And the one good season that he had was Saquon Barkley being healthy for a good majority of the year. And then they got to the playoffs, and then what? The Giants and their coach McAdoo, forget about all these people on the hot seat and all this other BS. That entire organization is crumbling right now. They have no clue what to do without Eli Manning. And look, I get it. Eli's not on every street corner. It's hard to find a quarterback in this league. I am not saying that this is an easy job. I am not saying that winning is easy, because it is not. But anybody, and I mean anybody who saw that phone call with Saquon Barkley and the GM, they now know how things are being handled with the New York Giants. A toxic-ass relationship. I don't really want to be with you. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm in a relationship or not. Here's what I do know. I'm going to let you see other people, but just do me a favor and just kind of stick around, you know, and just kind of, if you start seeing somebody, let me know. Maybe I want another chance. Maybe I'm going to get just jealous enough to stay with you. That is literally what they sounded like. Like a toxic-ass relationship. And I just don't see where anybody who's a player in the NFL right now saw that go down and thought to themselves, yeah, New York is the place that I want to go to. Hell no. No, they don't. They don't want to be there. They don't want to deal with that mess. They don't want these types of options. They don't want fake phone calls. Hey, man, where you at? How you doing? What's up? You working out? Cool. Shut up. Gosh, damn, that was the most pointless beginning to a phone call I think I've ever seen. Again, toxic relationship stuff. When you want to talk to somebody about something and you don't really know what to do, what do you got to do? You got to like try and ease the blow. Hey, what's up? What are you doing? Oh, yeah. Yeah, how's work today? Yeah, that's cool. Say, hey, look. Yeah, that's where that was really going all along. There was never going to be anything different in that conversation. So why not just call straight up and go, look, Saquon, it's just not working out. You do business different than we do business, and we're going to go ahead and let you go. Okay. That's real simple. Whether we like the move or not, I think we would at least respect that phone call a hell of a lot more. And why anybody thought it was a good idea to put that phone call out there is beyond me, bro. How in the hell did you see that phone call go down and think to yourself, let's go ahead and put this out to the public. This will make us look like we're really fighting for Saquon. Jeez. Oh, my gosh. Who is hiring these people? How do you get a job doing this? This is like 101 what not to do. And when you have the general public, oh my goodness, mad at you, and they're not even Giants fans and they're laughing at you. You know, the old adage is, if a guy in the bar knows, do you know why that's an old adage? Because a guy in a bar is probably so drunk that he's seeing double. But even he knows, probably wouldn't do that, amigo. I don't think I'd have done that at all. I'm just saying, maybe next time, don't do that. And you better be hurrying up and putting something else out. Because the fact that they never tried to put any other type of thing out, like, hey, you know, hey, Daniel Jones, how you doing? Anything, just literally anything else would have been better than what we saw. Good grief. All right, we're not going to have time to get on Caleb Williams today. Save that for Mignana, more than likely. Guys, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Tell your device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Google Podcasts, etc. Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan. I promise you I'm going to pop right up, my man. You can always download the HHN TV app, a.k.a. the Hip Hop Network. It's available on all devices, your TV, Droid, iPhone, iPad, tablet, etc. And, of course, you can always check me out live Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on WBFR Radio, Block 50 Radio. Block50radio.com is live 24/7, 365. Your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.